Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Bears minicamp. We're going to be talking White Sox baseball, Cubs baseball, and end of the season wrap up for both the Bulls and the Blackhawks. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the Stars of Tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The Calder Cup playoffs are going on right now, so make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, how are you this week?
I'm loving the weather. Had a good Mother's Day with the family. Spent some time with friends over the weekend as well. I can't complain about any of that stuff. As usual, sports, on the other hand, is not so bright, but what else is new?
It is a bad time to be a Chicago sports fan.
Yeah, and you know, this is the time of year where the schedule is going to be coming out for the Bears. We know who they're going to be playing, we just don't know when. And you know, this is when we have the guesses. When are they going to be on national TV? You figure they're going to be playing in Green Bay on Sunday Night Football or Thursday Night Football. You know, one of those nationally televised games. You know, there's going to be other big time matchups when the Bears and the Cowboys play. That's typically national TV, but you know, we'll find out for sure when all that's happening soon enough. But as that's all happening, this is when we as Bears fans tend to look at what we think the Bears are going to do because we drafted. So we have a better idea of what the roster is going to look like. And it's also the time of year where we tend to maybe overestimate the Bears a tad. And I am trying my very best not to be that fan because I do it every year. I do it every year where I look and I say, well, you know, maybe if we catch breaks here, and here, maybe we'll be about 500. Maybe we'll at least be 500. I'm just trying to tell myself there could be a lot of improvements, but frankly, I don't see better than 7 wins right now with this schedule. It's not a brutal schedule, but you know, they still got to play the Dolphins. They got to play the Bills. You know, obviously play the Packers. You're going to play, I think, the Eagles. So, you know, I'm trying to be very conservative on how I see this season playing out so far. Things could change as we go along, but yeah, I'm trying not to get overly excited like I tend to.
Yeah, I mean, it worked schedule-wise. Like the Bears are playing a last place schedule, and they're also playing the NFC East and the AFC South. Like if you're picking 2 divisions to play, those are probably the 2 divisions. You know, the Dolphins seem to be improved offensively, but again, if Tua is not the answer, that could go south real quick. Atlanta's probably not good.
No, they're not. We're going to be playing Ryan Pace.
You know, so, and then the NFC East, like the Giants are not going to be good. Who knows what the Cowboys are going to look like? The Eagles were not good last year. Nobody in that division was good last year.
I think the Eagles are going to be better this year. I really do.
We'll see. I mean, again, it comes down to, do they have the right quarterback? And so any optimism I have about the Bears doing well is a relative term. I'm talking the Bears being mediocre is to do with the fact that they're playing one of the easiest schedules in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's valid. And I mean, that's football is one of those games. It's the game where a bad or mediocre team can accidentally have a good year because of the schedule. And you know what? Things break your way in the NFL. You see teams go from first to worst or worst to first. You see it every year. You have your set of teams that are always contenders because they have the Hall of Fame quarterback. In this day and age, that's usually how it works. But, I mean, you are right. The Bears could have a respectable record because of their schedule, not really because of their roster. And, to a point, the Bears could be respectable in certain aspects of their game because they're coached right. You might not have the flashy players. The roster on paper is not a Super Bowl roster, but at least if you scheme right, if the coaching is good and your quarterback, Justin Fields, looks better, the right pieces are in the right spots, then yeah, you can look better. You can look better. And if you win some of those tight games against bad teams, then yeah, you can win more games than you expect. I think I'd be doing myself a disservice by, giving them the benefit of the doubt because, this is a new scheme. They haven't proven anything yet. Hell, I could see them winning 7 games as easy. I could see them winning only 4.
I mean, the Lions are going to be bad this year. So you got 2 against the Lions. Seattle's going to be bad. You get Seattle. The Jets are going to be bad. You get the Jets. You get Carolina. Carolina's going to be bad. You got
well, the Washington football team, they're not very good. Or what are they now? The
Commanders.
Yes.
So you got Minnesota, Green Bay, obviously, Atlanta, Miami, the Giants, the Jets,
Texans,
the Texans, the Patriots, who knows what they'll look like.
I think they'll be fine.
Dallas, San Francisco probably will be good. Detroit will be bad. Washington probably won't be good.
The Vikings are kind of a wild card, but I still think right now they're probably the better team. Not by much. I don't think the Vikings are all that special, but you got Justin Jefferson. You have they have offensive weapons on that team that make them better than what they could be.
I'm sorry. It doesn't look like they are playing Carolina. I think I was
going to say Carolina. I don't remember playing Carolina.
The chart I'm looking at has all the teams, and then you have to scroll across, but they didn't put like lines. So as I'm scrolling, I think I went up. The Lions are playing Carolina.
Right. So we got 49ers, Bills, Dolphins, Eagles, Texans, Washington.
We still get the Jets.
Yes, we get the Jets. We get the Giants. We get the Falcons. We get Dallas. And we get the Patriots. And then rest of your division.
Texans. Yeah. So, I mean, we do have a bad or like in fairly easy schedule as far as NFL schedules go.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to toot the Bears horn at all because obviously this is a rebuild year. And if you look, the way things are going, they're spending so much time and energy churning the bottom of that roster.
Mm-hmm.
And they're replacing most everybody with people that are younger, cheaper, and or more athletic. So Ladarius Mack is gone today.
The Macks are no more.
There's no more Macks on the Bears. But they're absolutely going to churn the bottom of that roster. Those offensive linemen that were the reserve guys, they're starting to go. Tyrone Wheatley Jr. gone. Alex Barr is gone. You see, basically anybody that's bottom of the roster guys, if they're not ace special teamers, like DeAndre Houston Carson brought back because he is, he can play either safety spot in a pinch and he's an ace special teamer. Okay. And he's cheap. So makes sense to bring him back. But, you start looking and you're like, the Bears are just really they're really going to churn over this roster. And that makes sense is you can't latch on to a team and just hang around if you don't have any business being able to make a start or working towards that. The Bears had a lot of offensive linemen that just had no business being on a roster and churning those guys over. And, the way that they attacked this offensive line is with a lot of bites at the apple in the draft. 4 offensive linemen taken. Okay. So there we go. That's who we're looking at. If one of those 4 guys pans out, the Bears did a good job.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's, you stock up and you increase your chances right there of something happening. And, Ryan Poles made that pretty clear he was going to do that.
Yeah. He's been very clear about everything. And he said that, they're going to start looking at that last wave of free agency and try to fill roster spots. And that makes sense. But I appreciate that the fact that they really did bring a lot of folks in to the rookie mini camp and they really worked. Like there was no lollygagging. These guys worked and they were seeing who are the hustlers, who are the people that have talent, who are the people that we can bring to training camp and really give them a fair shot. And they released a ton of people. They brought in a ton more people. They signed several of the people they gave tryouts to. And I love it. They're not resting on their laurels. They really are trying to build this team from the bottom up. And I appreciate it. And honestly, part of it is they're seeing, all right, who do they think could compete for a roster spot on this team? And then start really filling in with veterans after that. Like, do they feel that of all of these young players they have on the roster and the veterans that they have on this roster, do they have a right guard on this team? I think that's part of their evaluation process right now.
Oh yeah. That's an important one to figure out.
Yeah. They're not going to leave it up to chance, but they're going to give every opportunity for any one of those people to win the job,
which is fine. Yeah. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah. So I think they're really evaluating. They're like, what do these guys look like? Do they feel like they can compete for this job, or do we need to go out and get a veteran guard? Wide receiver, what do we have here between Velus Jones Jr. and the undrafted guys they brought in and the tryout guys and Byron Pringle and Equinemius St. Brown and the other guys that were still on the roster? What do they have there? Luke Getsy seems to think that they have enough.
Yeah.
And honestly, hear me out. If as part of the getting Justin Fields up to speed in this offense and in the NFL and helping him make that big second year jump, that they're going to run the ball a whole lot and play a lot of 2 tight end sets. How much more room is there for wide receivers if you're not really playing, like 4 wide receiver sets a lot? And you're really running the ball and trying to make plays here and there with his arm.
Look, you have guys that are quick. So if you want to make quick passes, screen passes with wide receivers, and you get good blocking from your tight ends and linemen, then yeah, you can make that work. The biggest thing for me is, it's not going to happen this year, but as you go forward, you're going to need that wide receiver that is just stronger and has the hands and can make the difference right there in front of you. Not necessarily using the legs in a play call. You dump it off, you get a screen pass, you use the speed, just beating somebody one-on-one. That's the big thing that they don't have. They don't have that size or the guy with the magic hands. It's the guy that we had in Allen Robinson in his first year. That's what you really, really lack. And I get your point. I get it. It's just when you're grooming a young quarterback, it would just, you need wide receivers no matter what. Even if you are going to beat them in the trenches, even if you are going to run the ball and you're going to use tight ends, you still need that stuff.
I'm not arguing with you that they're going to need that number 1 receiver. It's just, how imperative is it right now? I mean, sure, it would be nice to have that safety net that he could just dump it off to a Devontae Adams or a Jamar Chase or somebody like that. That would be great. But we don't have that, and that guy is not available in free agency right now. Our options are guys that are old and probably can't play anymore, or guys that are injured a lot, or guys that have gotten suspended for drug or for PEDs and also are often injured. Like, our options just really aren't there.
No, they're not.
So I just don't know how important it is to bring in more receivers at this point, when I really think they're gonna run the ball a solid chunk of the time and play a lot of 2 tight end sets.
Well, I mean, if you could do it effectively, that's all I can really ask for. I mean, it's not going to be a high-powered offense. I just want to see an offense that can function.
That's what I want. But, honestly, a lot of it is going to be this offensive system. I saw a chart the other day that the Bears, it showed like what percent of their plays were in, the different type of routes. And the Bears, their vast majority of their offensive of pass callings were curls that were short to the left or the right. That was the vast majority of their plays. So it was curls that were short yardage plays. And how do you have a sustained offense where everything's a curl?
Well, it's funny because I was talking about that with a coworker earlier today. How everything with Allen Robinson was a curl route last year. And we saw that the catches that Allen Robinson were making with those curl, like even just in week 1, not just Allen Robinson, but pretty much everybody, short dump off curl routes that weren't even more than 10 yards. It was maddening to watch.
Yeah, it's so infuriating.
It's like you're playing Madden and like you're not even button mashing. You're just hitting the same button every time.
it's just like you're right. It's like, somebody that doesn't know how to play a video game that they like playing with your little sister. It's just the same play over and over and over and over. And you're like, Jesus Christ, you're not going to win the game doing this. It's frustrating. And when that's your offensive guru that's doing that, there are no plays under the Matt Nagy system that had, that got you yards after the catch. They just didn't happen. It was, if you got the catch and then you went down. There were no slants. There was no separation from anybody. And honestly, I think you're going to see improvement from people just based on the fact that we're going to run a offensive system, designed by adults. The system is, from a tree that we see works in the NFL. The Andy Reid tree does not work. Andy Reid works. The Andy Reid tree does not. It's like Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick works. Bill Belichick's tree doesn't work so much. But you see the scheme, the Getsy scheme, like you see a ton of people where that scheme works, and it's all over the NFL. 49ers, the Rams, now the Dolphins, the Bears, the Packers, because it works.
If Luke Getsy could bring some of that Packer magic, boy, would that be nice.
I mean, you know what? I will take that the Packers magic goes away, even if it doesn't mean the Bears get that magic. I'm just settling here. I just don't want to see that stupid team have the magic. But then we also have, I don't know if you saw the comments from what's his nuts that used to play for the Lions.
Dan Orlovsky. Yeah.
I mean,
I kind of get what he's saying, but I don't fully agree with what he's saying.
I'm fine if you're going to say things like, all right, well, until you prove it, you're, nobody should give you the credit. Okay, that's fine. But I just don't understand, like, the offensive scheme will improve. Fields will be taking a second-year leap. Every quarterback does. You're going to focus more on the run. You have improved your offensive weapons from last year. So I don't know, just because they didn't give him a stud wide receiver in free agency or a trade that, you're going to knock the guy. I mean, and to say that Mooney is a wide receiver 3. The guy was 19th and 20th in catches and yards. So
in a Matt Nagy offense.
I mean, there's 32 teams in the NFL. So if he was really a wide receiver 3, shouldn't he be down towards, 96?
Right.
Somewhere in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. Like, shouldn't he be somewhere in there instead of the top 2/3 of wide receiver? I mean, the top 20 in wide receiver numbers. Now, am I going to go out and scream and yell that Darnell Mooney is an elite number 1 wide receiver?
No, he's not.
Obviously, he's a really good Robin to somebody being a Batman.
Right. There you go. That's a perfect analogy for it.
But
he's your wide receiver 1 now because you don't have a wide receiver 1.
Yeah. But if you next year, the Bears are probably going to have a pretty good draft pick in the first round. And the wide receivers in next year's draft look right now to be better than this year's. So you could have reached in the second round for a wide receiver that you didn't truly believe in, that was off of your, outside your board. Or people are going to be mad because they went out and got a cornerback that's going to start day one and a safety that's going to start day one that they had first round grades on. Like, why would you get mad at that? It's not like if the Bears would have taken George Pickens or somebody with one of those second round picks and drafted an offensive lineman, two people off that weren't on their board at that spot, then people right now would be screaming, man, look at the cornerbacks on this roster. The Bears are going to suck. Who's playing corner? Who's opposite Jalen Johnson? Oh my goodness. Oh, why would you draft an offensive lineman in the second when you needed a cornerback? That's what would happen. There's so many holes and there's only so many draft picks. This is not a year that you're expecting to win. So, I mean, is Darnell Mooney a number one? No, but he's a pretty darn good number two. And so I don't understand, calling him a wide receiver 3, even on a good team, seems like a dig at him and seems like an uneducated from a smart guy. It seems like a dumb thing from a smart guy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really pay attention to what national media says. I look at what we have on our own and, I get it. You don't want to give the Bears the benefit of the doubt because they're the Bears. I get it. I do. But, at the same time, you got to look at the circumstances and you got to look at what these guys have actually done. And, you want to say your expectations for the Bears overall are low. Yeah, they are low. They're low everywhere. But, I don't think that Justin Fields deserves, to say, oh, my expectations for him are low. He hasn't proven much yet. He's shown what he can do, but it's all got to come together. I understand that, but I don't know. I half agreed with what Orlovsky said. If you want to talk about what they didn't do around him or what he doesn't have, less as a dig at their strategy, but more just saying, yeah, he flat out doesn't have it. Okay, that's fine. That's true. I'm not going to disagree with that, but yeah, I mean, whatever.
I mean, nothing anybody in the national media or even the local media says means anything, to be honest.
Right. They have to go out and they have to, they got to show it themselves. They got to just flat out do it themselves.
Yeah. The Bears,
they want to be better. They got to show it.
Yeah. The Bears just have to go out and on the field and play better. And I was, when the Bears hired Ryan Poles, was he my first option? No. But to be fair, I didn't know a lot about him. He was an unknown.
Not a lot of people did.
Yeah. So, okay. I got on board with him. He hired Matt Eberflus. Was Matt Eberflus on my priority list as head coach of the Bears? No. And people are already in the media are already going to be skeptical because they hired a defensive coach when they just got a rookie quarterback and they're trying to build from a terrible offense and they hire a defensive coach. I see the skepticism, but I'm starting to buy into Matt Eberflus and as a head coach because people seem to like him and he gets people to play hard.
My concern isn't the team liking him or playing for him. My concern is what kind of a head coach is he? Is he a guy who is going to manage a clock good for you? Is he a guy that is going to challenge plays in the right appropriate things? In terms of the scheme and assembling guys together, it's like, okay, you look at the coaching staff, you can see why you would be optimistic about this. You also like the fact that he seems to be giving the power to his coordinators. That's something that Matt Nagy didn't do with the offense, and that's something that drove us crazy for many, many reasons. That's not really what I'm worried about, just the technical stuff, the true job of being a head coach. Are you good at managing a clock if you're up or down? Are you good at taking timeouts? Are you good at challenging plays? All that stuff matters a lot. And that is it's a mystery. It's a complete mystery. I got nothing to base that off of because he's never been a head coach.
And that's really fair. And to be honest with you, until you do it, do you really know? I mean, you've been around football long enough to have some sort of sense. You sort of absorb those things. You see what your coaches did. You know when to complain about what your coach didn't call a timeout, or when your coach did challenge a play, whether you're a player or an assistant. You're like, what the hell was he doing? Why did he challenge? All those things you sort of just pick up on, and you absorb and you process just by being present. And but until you actually do it, you don't know if you're going to be good at it. And that's a fair point. And we'll see. And I'm sure we'll see a learning curve in the beginning. And you hope that by the end of the season, that you're a lot better at the end than at the beginning, and growth. And that's the thing that we never saw from Matt Nagy. We never saw growth. We saw, if anything, regression. You're right.
And well, think about it. You started off as a division winner, and then you regressed more and more.
So I just want to see the growth from the head coach as well.
Yeah.
If he makes boneheaded timeouts or, bad challenges early on,
bad clock management,
you know what? If it doesn't cost them games, or it's early in the season and you see improvement, okay, this is a growth year anyway. But I want to see him get better. But I'm okay. I've come to terms with that. They've hired Matt Eberflus, and even though he's an acronym guy, that kind of makes me roll my eyes.
Yeah. If it works, then I won't care.
Yeah. I mean, you know what, honestly, is listen to 99% of sports dudes talk, and they all speak in cliches and things like that anyway. So is it that much worse? So I'm on board with that.
And I think there's something really interesting to say here too. And it's a thought that I think most people can agree with. There's a difference between growing pains and incompetence for a first-year head coach.
Absolutely.
I think that reflects pretty well. Growing pains are maybe smaller things that you just know you got to clean up, and then you don't see it happen as much again. And you say, okay, small hiccup. It's really hard for a first-time head coach to be flawless. I mean, no head coach is ever flawless, but you're going to see more growing pains when it's your first year. But I mean, if you're completely clueless, you don't know how many timeouts you are. You don't know when to challenge a play. You don't really know if you want to give your coordinators, the power or not when you're in between. That's incompetence. And I'm not worried about him taking the power from the coordinators. It's just, we got to see the in-game stuff, the technical stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, this whole team is being built from the ground up. They've got their cornerstones in place with the coaches, the GM, and they're churning this roster. They're slowly adding talent. They're getting younger, more athletic. Do I agree with everything? No, but I also don't disagree with everything. When with the Gordon and the Brisker picks, they were positions of need. Well, the cornerback was a desperate position of need, arguably their biggest position of need. And Brisker was such a good value at that in that second of the second round picks that I don't know how you passed up on him. And but the trading back to take multiple bites at the apple of offensive line, great. It's like Yoshi. So I mean, I like it. I like they brought in a 3-day span, brought in 45 new players, and they are quickly evaluating those players and cutting guys and signing guys.
And it's good because they're not putting faith in just a select amount of people. They're literally letting, I mean, this is the year where you can do that, where pretty much everything is an open competition, except for like the first time ever, the quarterback competition is not there.
Yeah. And
isn't that nice?
And I love it. And I hope they don't get married to draft picks. Like Ryan Pace did not want to cut his draft picks.
No,
that was frustrating.
My guys. I stand by them until the end.
Is if you drafted somebody, okay, you drafted them. But if they don't work out or an undrafted player is better, go with who's better. I don't care. And
we say this thing too is, you don't necessarily need to be married to Ryan Pace draft picks either. I mean, there's Roquan Smith, who I think is an anchor, but you look at the rest of the draft picks that are still on the team, whether it's Eddie Jackson, whether it's, even Tevin Jenkins, not doubting Tevin Jenkins. I'm just saying that he might not be as married to some of those guys as maybe one may think. He's got a whole new philosophy. We'll see.
I don't think Eddie Jackson is on this team because I know
you need somebody. I do get that.
You need somebody, and it's not cost effective to cut him now.
No. And I'm not saying that they're going to cut him or trade him. I'm just saying that he might not, he might not see him as, an essential piece going forward, even if you need somebody. I mean, that's the whole point I was trying to get with Eddie Jackson.
Oh, no, I get it. But I honestly think if Eddie Jackson does not play this well this year, he will not be on this team next year.
Right. That's exactly what I was trying to hint at. Yes.
Same with Cody Whitehair.
But then you will be really upsetting the man, the myth, the legend, Dave Wanstead.
Whitey coat hair.
No, not Whitey coat hair. But even though this Bears team is probably not going to be very good, at least it gives us an opportunity to see a competition that we like. We're tired of the quarterback competitions. We were tired of the kicking competitions in 2019. But if you have a position where both your kicker and your quarterback are set in place, and you pretty much know that your top draft picks are going to be essential starters in the secondary. I mean, Brisker, he is going to, I think Brisker could very well be your number one secondary player right now, even without the experience. I mean, obviously the overall resume would say Eddie Jackson, but I mean, sure, Jalen Johnson's really good. I don't want to forget about Jalen Johnson. I just think Brisker has a lot of upside. And Jalen Johnson needs to stay healthy.
True, he does. But I'm looking here. Sam Mustipher. He is not a player that I think is long for this team. I would be surprised, honestly, if he makes this team. That's a Ryan Pace guy. I'm looking at the depth chart here, and a lot of the offensive linemen from last year are just gone. Borman Jenkins there. Mustipher is there for now. Whitehair's there because of financial reasons, and plus you don't want to try to replace your whole interior offensive line in one fell swoop. But after that, I think Lachavious Simmons is still listed there, but I don't know how long he's going to be there. Dieter Iselin, but yeah, he was like a work in progress. You already saw him get rid of the backup quarterback under Pace. I have a feeling that this might be the last year of David Montgomery.
I think so too.
And as much as we did like Khalil Herbert, what we saw, he went out and drafted a running back. So don't be shocked if Khalil Herbert is not here next year either. Let's see, Travis Gibson. It's, he might be supplanted by Al-Qadim Muhammad. I think a lot of the defensive linemen that you have there are probably still there because of you need guys there. Kyrus Tonga might stick around, but Mari Edwards and Jeremiah Tachu probably not long for this team. You already overhauled most of your linebackers. Roquan's he's system defying. You're gonna keep him.
Yeah.
He
needs to be around for a while.
I mean, they already signed somebody to replace Duke Shelley. They drafted somebody to replace Kendall Vildor. Eddie Jackson is here. I mean, you need a veteran there, but also financial reasons. And they've already replaced a lot of the safeties, and they brought back DeAndre Houston Carson, like I said, because he was able to make spot starts and he was a special teamer. Kendall Vildor, who knows if he makes this team? I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. You replace the punter. The kicker's good. So really you've already turned over a lot of the players that were Ryan Pace guys, and you're replacing them with Ryan Poles guys who are younger, more athletic.
Man, I'm sorry. Every time I hear younger and more athletic,
Garpax.
I just hear Garpax.
Let's see. I'm looking at who are the wide receivers that are still available.
I know Emmanuel Sanders is my fantasy guy. And I think Julio Jones is still unsigned.
Julio Jones. But
AJ Green.
Julio Jones is 33. Jarvis Landry is still available. Will Fuller, right. T.Y. Hilton, Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, who's 35. Keelan Cole,
man.
Alan Hearns, Albert Wilson, Deshaun Jackson, Danny Amendola, Odell Beckham, Marquise Goodwin, Adam Humphries, Mohamed Sanu, Dede Westbrook, Tavon Austin, Chester Rogers, Chad Beebe. Like, there's not a lot of good names on here. People are on this list for a reason. Julio Jones is old as dirt. T.Y. Hilton's old as dirt. Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, Deshaun Jackson, Danny Amendola.
Deshaun Jackson, man.
He'll play this year. Deshaun Jackson will play this year, but he's going to go to a team that where he's like the third or fourth wide receiver option for a Super Bowl contender.
Yep, get a ring.
And that's what he's chasing now. He'll get a veteran minimum, $1 to $2 million deal, and he'll do that. Julio Jones old. Jarvis Landry. I don't know. I mean, he's okay, but is he coming to the Bears? Are the Bears going to want him? I don't know. Will Fuller. I like Will Fuller. Can Will Fuller stay healthy when he's not on PEDs?
I don't know.
Keelan Cole's an option. Other than that, there's really just nothing there.
No, there's not.
So I just don't know who, all these people are like, oh, the Bears should just bring in another wide receiver. Like, who? Turn it into
I mean, the
an
nice
owl.
thing is if you bring in one of those guys, at least it wouldn't cost you much.
No, definitely
And
won't.
if they suck, you cut them. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in a veteran who can just bring a little bit of experience. It couldn't do any harm, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying is I don't want them to bring somebody in just to sit at the end of the bench. I want somebody to come in and actually help the Bears.
Right.
But I would imagine by the time we record the next episode that they've started to dive into free agency.
I would think so too. It's.
I mean, at this point, these are not guaranteed contracts. They're bringing in guys that may not make it on the roster depending on how training camp looks, because there's a lot of young players you brought in that who knows what they're going to look like. Are they going to be good? Like Braxton Jones, can he play? Is he? I mean, I think he can, but is he ready to play now? Ja'Tyre Carter, is he ready to step in at guard? Gene DeLance, is he ready to play? Zachary Thomas, a lot of these guys, if they play well in training camp, they may not keep a Dakota Dozier.
But I like that name.
They may not keep a Willie Wright.
What is that? Is that? What was his face? Willie something. What was his name? Was he a linebacker or defensive end? Willie Young? Was that his
Yes.
name? Yeah, Willie Young. And then what was the other part of the name? I already forgot.
Willie Wright?
Major Wright and Willie Young. You put them together.
Mashup. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a really fun training camp. I'm excited for it. It's definitely you're gonna see a lot of new faces.
Yeah, no kidding.
Where do you want to go from here?
Well, we can talk a little hockey. There's a subject that I want to save for last, and I think you know what that is. So I say we go Blackhawks, White Sox next.
Sure. So I saw that Barry Trotz got fired by the Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of Bears fans calling for him to be hired.
The Bears are going to hire.
Sorry,
Barry
the
Trotz?
Blackhawks. The Blackhawks. A lot of Blackhawks fans calling for Barry Trotz to be hired. Is he better than King? Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question about it. Does Barry Trotz want to come here at the beginning of a rebuild?
Probably not.
Probably not. What is he going to do to this team? It's not, I mean, granted, I do want somebody to come in this organization and help develop talent, because currently the way they do things, the Blackhawks can't develop talent.
No. The past few years, the developing talent has been non-existent.
They get guys that are talented. I think they've done a good job of identifying talent, and then they go, oh, hey, they just didn't magically get better.
They've done I think they've done an okay job. I still think that Stan Bowman fell too much in love with the gritty, big, luggy, physical scoring defensemen and not the quick guys. But they have, to your point, they've identified guys Alex DeBrincat obviously worked out, but, there was once high hope for Adam Boqvist or Ian Mitchell, those type of guys. And they just they've either been traded away or just haven't really panned out.
That's what I'm saying is I want the Blackhawks to be better at developing those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
It's, obviously they were not devoid of talent, those players, when they drafted them. They were high draft picks. but I want them to be like, hey, let's figure out how to get them to the next level. And the Blackhawks, that's where they've been bad.
You're right. And, here's the thing is you've gone from, when Quenneville was around here, when you were competing for Stanley Cups / when you were kind of on the downfall, he was the guy who played the veterans. The younger guys weren't getting the time. I mean, look at Teuvo Teravainen. They weren't getting the development time they needed. And then you went from that to back-to-back AHL coaches. And sure, that's good for the AHL. You need to have the right coaching down at that level. And I think both Colleton and King are good AHL coaches. But once you get to the big leagues, man, you got to have the right NHL caliber coaching. And we haven't had that over the past few years.
I mean, I'm even saying Rockford, when have they developed players in Rockford? And that's been frustrating. And the Blackhawks, they did a disservice to Teuvo. Teuvo gets traded away, and then you see him be a really good player.
But, at the same time, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so maybe I'm remembering a bit wrong, but it never seemed like Teuvo was ever playing to his potential here. Not blaming that on him. I'm just blaming it, I think, on the situation he was in and how they were developing him. But Carolina, you want to talk about a franchise that develops their talent well. Look what they did with him. I mean, it's a big difference. It's night and day.
Yeah. You can say Artemi Panarin, but he just came in and was good. You didn't have to do anything.
He was an international just star.
So I just want them to be able to develop players in Rockford and then have that pipeline that comes up. There's so many players that we look at down in Rockford over the years, and we're like, oh, this is going to be the next Blackhawk star. And then they just fizzle.
Right.
Like Philip Deneau. We just see a lot of those guys, and you're just like, oh man, what happened to them? And they just never pan out.
Remember Mark McNeil about a decade ago?
Yep.
Remember Jack Skilly?
Mm-hmm.
You've had your share of it. I mean, Brandon Saad worked out for you. I mean, that was a nice find. Obviously, Alex DeBrincat worked out for you. And, we're not even talking about Kane, Taze, Keith, and Seabrook because, I mean, they were top tier, like can't miss prospects. But, you're going to have those guys. And then you're going to have the guys where they could be star players, but they got to be developed correctly. And the Hawks have had a lot of that, and they just, they haven't developed them correctly.
Yeah. So will they be a better team under Barry Trotz? Yes. Will they be a good team under Barry Trotz? No.
They're far from being a good team. We don't even know who their goaltender is going to be next year.
Yeah. So I understand, the knee-jerk reaction to be like, oh, Barry Trotz got fired, let's hire him. He's going to have other opportunities, and there's going to be better opportunities where they have a more well-developed team.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, this offseason is going to be interesting. What do you do? You're not a few signings away from being good, but you need to do something. I mean, it to me, I feel like this could be a year where they go out and say, you know what, we're going to sign some veterans, and then we're going to trade them away for more draft picks and just stock up on draft capital over the next year or so, and then just rebuild like that. But I'll tell you what, that might be the right course in the long run. I'm just saying it's going to take quite a while to be good again.
And the thing is like, they also don't have a ton of salary cap space.
Not going into next year. I mean, once Taze is off the books, that's a lot that's going to get cleared up right there.
So you have, I mean, this year, I think they're with the extra bonuses, they ended up being over the cap.
Mm-hmm. Good job, Stan Bowman.
Yeah. So it's not like, oh, you know what? We suck, but we can fix things with bringing in our younger talent and then adding a few veterans. We're not in that position.
No, we're not.
Like we don't have a goaltender.
They're gonna have to sign somebody, man. I mean,
yeah, it's just.
I mean, the system, that next goaltender, that's not really up and coming yet. Soderblom, Dahlia, Lankinen, those aren't long-term starting goaltender options. At the most, they're like backup / organizational depth needed on an emergency basis. And I don't even think Colin Delia, he might even be a free agent this coming year.
Yeah. So the Blackhawks have $21 million in cap space, but they've got to sign 10 guys.
Right.
So
I mean, where do you begin?
I don't know. And you need a goalie. You don't have a goalie.
You don't have a goalie. You don't have enough wingers that can score. You don't have enough defensemen. You don't have a lot.
No, you really don't.
And what, you traded away Brandon Hagel, obviously, which, I mean, obviously, I think the trade will be worth it in the end with those first-round picks. But, you know, centers, guys who could play face-off. I mean, there's no part of this team that you say, oh, yeah, this is fine. Your scorers are DeBrincat and Kane. Those are your scorers. Taves doesn't score much anymore.
No.
Kubelik fell off a cliff.
Yep.
Hagel was scoring a bit, but he's gone now. Seth Jones can put it in the back of the net every now and then, but he's a defenseman, so you can't rely on him.
Yeah, you're not relying on him to be a regular scorer.
I mean, you hope that, if you keep him around, Dylan Strome can build off what he did last year. That's about it.
This is, I'm going by Spotrac. This is their roster next year. Kane, Taves, Seth Jones, Alex DeBrincat, Tyler Johnson, Jake McCabe, Brett Connolly, Riley Stillman, Henrik Borgstrom, Kujar Caro, Alex Vlasic, Mackenzie Entwistle, Mike Hardman, Taylor Radish, Sam Lafferty. And then they have non-roster players like Ian Mitchell, Lucas Reichel, Soderblom, Stauber, etc. That's not a playoff roster.
Wait, did you read the Blackhawks roster or 4 guys from the Blackhawks and the Rockford Ice Hogs roster?
Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, to say they're light years away from contending is an understatement. It's an understatement.
There's no talent. There's no money. Like, what do you do?
They're going to tank next year. The way I see it, they're going to tank.
They have to.
You tank, you get some of the money off the book, you get a high draft pick, you have other draft picks that you traded for, you sign a few veterans, you stock up on a few more draft picks.
Do you trade Patrick Kane?
I think if the offer is good, yes. I think if someone's giving you a really good package and Kane agrees to waive his no trade clause, I think you got to do it.
I think you have to do it no matter what.
I mean, he has to waive his no trade clause from what I remember.
He does, but I don't even worry about if it's a great package. If he waives it, trade him.
I mean, I don't want to trade him for nothing, but I think you'll get something for him, obviously. You can't be married to Kane and Taves anymore. And I know some people don't want to accept that. And understand that it's hard to let go of those types of players, but what's the point at this point? I mean, I will say this though. The Wirtz might look at that situation and be like, Kane might be one of the only reasons people come out to pay tickets. If Kane is gone and it's just a complete AHL roster, I think the Wirtz family looks at that and goes, well, then nobody's going to come out. So will they actually trade him if it might be a good idea in the long run? I don't know. I mean, you get what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely. But you look at the roster for the 23-24 season. So not next year, the year after. Your roster is Seth Jones, Tyler Johnson, Jake McCabe, Riley Stillman, Alec Vlasic, Mike Hardman, Mackenzie Entwistle, Taylor Radish, and Sam Lafferty. How do you win any games with that?
You don't.
And you're paying Seth Jones like some $9.5 million cap
for how long? Like
forever.
He's going to end up his contract rights are going to end up on the Phoenix Coyotes one day. Eesh.
That contract is going to be, you were able to get rid of Brent Seabrook and we went, oh, whew. And then they were like, let's get a new Brent Seabrook contract.
A guy who's good, but his ceiling was never even as high as Seabrook in his prime.
Seth Jones is nowhere near as good as Brent Seabrook in his prime, period. But then you traded for him and then you gave him a stupid contract.
It's just, I don't get it. I was Stan Bowman really that desperate to either keep his job or to keep the news of the Blackhawks away from other things?
That was really the worst thing he could have done when he left this team.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, what a mess.
We are like 4 years away from being decent.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look how long some of these other rebuilds took with other teams. Do you remember how long the Oilers were just complete shit for?
We're in for that. We're in for that. And our GM is not going to be the same GM when we're good next.
You don't think so?
I do not.
I'm giving him a chance.
It's not even a big knock. I'm just saying we're so far away that by the time he starts digging in, they're just gonna be like, we can't. We got to fire.
I thought you were gonna say like he and all of us have passed on.
He's dead, and they just had to replace him because he was dead.
Because it's been like 100 years.
83. So I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know how you do this rebuild. You're gonna have to fill the roster with bottom of the barrel players to fill out the roster because you don't have any money. And it's not until Taves and Kane are off the books. And even then, you don't have as much as you would want or need because you're paying Seth Jones stupid amount of money.
Yeah.
Like if it's one thing, if you're like, you know what, we're going to tear it down to the studs and we're going to have tons of money. We're going to tank. We're going to build up draft picks and then we're going to have a ton of money to spend. That works. That's, as long as you
it's
draft
not
right.
fun, but it can work.
No, but Seth Jones is a roadblock in that happening.
Well, what you could pray for is that the cap continues to go up.
It's not. We are in a flat cap era with the hockey.
You just had to squish my hopes.
I really did, and I didn't mean to, but it was a reality that had to be talked about. that the NHL cap is not going to shoot up like NBA or NFL. Like that just, it's not going to happen. It's going to go up a little bit, but it's going to be $1 million here.
Tiny bit.
Yeah. Not enough to make that contract palatable. And, your best bet is going to be to dump him off on a team that has to meet the salary cap floor along with picks or players.
Just sell his rights to the Arizona Coyotes.
Can we do what we did with Cristobal Huey and just loan him to like Sweden or something?
Here for Hisadir. Yeah, you could do that.
Just be like, we're just going to lend him. So don't count him towards the salary cap. We're going to lend him to somebody else.
And this, I don't want to sound like I'm knocking on Seth Jones too much because he played overall okay. It's just I don't mind having him on the team. It's the freaking contract.
It's if you're paying a guy $9 million a year, I want him to be Ovechkin or somebody that's going to be
Daniel
a game changer.
Alfredson.
I want a game changer. Seth Jones is not a game changer.
He's good, but not a game changer. Exactly.
Yeah. So I if you were paying him $5 million a year or $6 million a year, okay. But 9.5. That's yeah, we're gonna have to change the meme to Blackhawks fan puke pretty soon.
You're gonna have the puking stilts, but the stilts at the bottom are gonna have skates on it. So you're skating on these massive stilts, just blah blah blah.
You're skating on a pond of frozen puke.
Oh, okay. That's gross. I'm sorry I even brought up the puking stilts.
Damn it, Sean. Why do you always got to take it too far?
I got to learn to just shut my yap.
So yeah,
might as well be with this team.
It is a bad team, and this is going to be a train wreck for a while. And we're going to hit it eventually. I don't ever think we'll have, as far as paid attendance, I don't think we're ever going to hit that low because so many corporations own tickets. But actual butts in the seats, it's going to get pretty ugly.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think it's going to go to the Bill Wirtz era bad, but it's going to decrease. And I said on our last episode, or maybe one of the other episodes, they were still top 5 in attendance, and I was pretty impressed. And, more kids are interested in hockey and playing hockey in the Chicagoland area now than they were 15 years ago. But I mean, you continue to be bad. It's it's going to continue to take a hit. Like, don't be surprised next year if it's another year like this, that attendance drops down to like 12.
I mean, the thing is they're always going to hang their hat on the paid attendance. And that's still going to be high because there's going to be the diehards, and then there's going to be the corporations and things like that.
Your season ticket holder base is definitely bigger than it was in 2006.
Yeah. But, they better not be raising any prices because they're putting a terrible product on the ice.
Honestly, like, just make tickets like in the 300 level, like $10 next year.
Yeah, people will go. Like $20 tickets, people will go.
And you know what else they should do? I don't know how much they actually have control over this because I know they go through like different companies, but lower the price of damn parking. Like, seriously.
Yeah. What is it? $25 to park?
If you want easy out, it's like 30 now.
That's why I just take the L.
I don't really have that option.
Yeah, I have that option. So I just park at the L stop, and I mean, I could just take the bus to the L, but I'm lazy. So I drive to the L and then hop on the L, and I'm there, and it's, like $5. And I don't have to fight traffic getting out, any of that stuff. But you're right. It is like, even if say you get $15 tickets, you're like, I'm going to take my family and suddenly you're at $60 for 4, and then you bring your family, and then they're all going to want something to drink, something to eat, a souvenir, and then you're parking, and suddenly you're at like $150.
Right, exactly. And I mean, pretty much all the Blackhawks games I went to this year, virtually all of them, I went to like 5. Every single one, I paid more for parking than the ticket. Granted, one was because it was my friend gave them to me because he couldn't use them in the 100 level, but every other ticket I bought those tickets, and even the ones my dad bought, for me and my brother when the 3 of us went. I mean, each ticket was less expensive than actual parking. I went to a few games just by myself on a whim, whether because I wasn't with a friend or a family, but I paid more for parking.
I mean, I don't have the parking issue, but every ticket I've gotten this year has been less than what parking would be if I paid for parking.
Yeah, and hell, buying a freaking souvenir soda and nachos with jalapenos on them is like even more than the ticket now.
Yeah, it's true. You get a piece of pizza and a drink, and it's far more than what I paid for most tickets.
So, if the Blackhawks want to market to people next year, lower the price of parking, make it $15 or something. I think paying for parking is just annoying anyway, but 15, if you cut the prices in half, it'd be a hell lot better. Cut that.
Do
what the tickets cheaper.
Do what the White Sox did for years, essentially almost give away the tickets, and assuming that you'll get more people in and they'll spend money on stuff. So to go like a family 4-pack of tickets for $40 and you get a free t-shirt, something like that. And to get butts in the seats, and then assume that everyone will go buy something in the gift shop, and we'll buy some food, whatnot. But I think that's where you're going to have to go, and because people are going to get burnt out on the years of being a rebuild.
I mean, and just naturally, in most American cities, hockey is so much more fickle. If they're not good, they're not interested. You have your diehards. Chicago is a bigger hockey city now than it ever was still. I mean, sure, they were big in the 60s and the 80s and the early 90s, but, those Stanley Cups create a whole new fan base, and more kids are playing hockey in this area than ever. So, yeah, the interest in hockey will always be higher, even in the lows, than the lows of previous eras, but you're not going to have the casuals show up like they did. You're not going to have people going out like they once did. I mean, let's be real.
And what's frustrating is you look at a team like a mirror team like the LA Kings. The LA Kings were good when the Blackhawks were good.
Mm-hmm.
They were like their nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
And those two teams ruled for a long time. And then both teams got old and started going downhill. And then the Kings have turned it around already. Like, why are the Blackhawks so still down?
Mismanagement.
I mean, obviously, ownership backed the wrong horse. They backed Stan Bowman. Was it time to move on from Q? Probably, but if I had at this point, if I had to go back and choose between Q and Bowman, obviously you're getting rid of Stan, because I would choose a overflowing trash can over Stan.
I mean, really, they should have just been done with the whole regime in 2018. Just be like, wipe the slate clean. We're entering the rebuild now. That's what really should have happened.
Yeah, the Blackhawks were like, oh, we don't have a goalie, and the LA Kings are, might beat the Oilers in the.
Yeah, they're a playoff team again.
They are a good playoff team.
They had some down years, and now they're back.
It's the way it's supposed to go.
Yep.
All right, should we move to baseball?
Yeah, why don't we?
Well, the White Sox seem to have found their groove again.
Well, I figured it was a matter of time before they started winning games again. I mean, I thought they were too good not to be at least having some successful runs again. I mean, their pitching has been very good. The hitting's going to get better as the season warms up, and they're going to, they hit into some bad luck during that losing streak. It's not entirely an excuse, but it was kind of part of the equation. And guys are getting healthier again. Yoan's back, and Luis Robert came back. Giolito came back. So, guys are getting healthier again, and they're playing much better again. You'd like to see him score some more runs more consistently, but I think that'll come. Got to play better defensively. Obviously, that's still really the one thing I'm concerned about. But when they weren't scoring that many runs and just not winning the close games, I just kind of had a feeling that was going to even out after a while. But having Yoan back in that lineup is going to be so big. Even if Yoan isn't, the biggest, flashiest star on the team like Robert is, he's essential for that lineup. They are just a much better team with him in the lineup. He's an essential part that makes them better. So having him back is going to boost them even more. I think they'll be back in first place before you know it. Though the Twins have been tough. The Twins are playing pretty well. So maybe the Sox and the Twins are going to have a solid battle for a little while here. But I think they're just going to, the Sox are going to overtake the Twins, and nobody else in that division is in within eons of them.
No, absolutely not. And the Twins will, they might be putting up a little bit of fight now. They're not contenders. They will fade away to a long season. That's what happens. But like you said, the White Sox are finding their groove, and they're winning games. The pitching has been better. I mean, even Vince Velasquez pitched a really good game his last outing.
Yeah, he did.
Kopech is pitching really well tonight. And you're just seeing, I think even Keuchel's last outing was solid
for once.
So you look at this team and you're like, okay, this is the White Sox that we expected to see. Once Abreu's bat starts coming back,
which it should,
which it will. Grandal's not going to bat 170 all year, and even Leury Garcia is almost batting 200 at this point.
Woo! It's the Tony La Russa believes in him, man.
He really does. I wish somebody believed in me half as much as he believes in Leury Garcia.
Yeah, right on. Exactly. Yeah, the other thing too about the Sox is even though they didn't win the game, when they rallied and almost beat the Angels, that kind of felt like a bit of a spark. Even though you just came short in that game, it felt like, maybe that they kind of woke up a little bit. And, again, there's still things to improve upon, but when you're winning, you're winning. And you played some terrible baseball during that losing streak. Nobody is going to argue that. But, it was a combination of playing bad and some unlucky breaks. We saw the exit velocity that they were hitting the ball with, and they weren't finding grass. They weren't finding seats. They were finding gloves, and it was going to even out after a while. So in terms of making the playoffs, I'm not worried about them at all. When they get to the playoffs, we'll get that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but they're going to win the division.
Yeah.
I'm 99.9% sure they're going to win the division. You always have to have that 0.1% of doubt because sports happen. Nothing is ever fully guaranteed until it happens, but they're going to win the division. Do you really, I think the Twins aren't a bad team. I just don't think they have the same firepower the Sox do. And what you hope for the Sox is they stay healthy. If they have more injuries, then you get more concerned. But if they get healthy and stay healthy, that's going to make things a lot easier for them. And, the other reason I'm just really not down on the Sox at all in terms of making the postseason, as I said before, look at the rest of that division outside the Twins. The Tigers are awful. The Royals are awful. Cleveland is awful.
Yes. And you're starting to see Liam Hendricks pitch awesome.
Which, again, I think you and I both figured that would happen.
Did you know that Reese McGuire has caught more games this year for the White Sox than Yasmani Grandal?
I'm not surprised. I mean, I know Yaz has been in there, but, they got Reese McGuire for defense. That's what they got him for.
And it's
worked.
We haven't talked a lot about this, but last year, the White Sox couldn't throw out runners.
No.
People were stealing left and right on them.
Right.
And they've been better this year. I wouldn't say they're good, but they've been a lot better. And Reese McGuire is probably a little more helpful in that area.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Yasmani Grandal is not going to throw guys out.
Yeah. So, and then Johnny Cueto, we might see a Johnny Cueto sighting pretty soon.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Lance Lynn is going to be back sooner rather than later. Another couple weeks, and we'll probably see Lance Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Vaughn will be coming back. Joe Kelly is back. It's a bummer that Bummer went to the DL, but
Bummer's been kind of bad though.
He really has. Maybe this injury in a rehab stint does him good.
Maybe.
Just like hitting
maybe
a reset
something was
button.
bugging him. Yeah.
I mean, even if it was things like, the mechanics were off or just the mental thing, like just hitting a reset button of, you know what, I'm on the injured list. I'm going to get healthy. Then I'll make a rehab start. And it's like when you can't figure out what's wrong with your computer. So you shut it down and restart it. And it's like, oh, I don't know. It just works.
Yeah.
Sometimes a DL stint can do that for a guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the White Sox are a good team, and I'm happy that they're starting to figure that out. It sucked that they had to figure out against the Cubs, but that is what it is. So you want to talk about our garbage baseball team?
This is embarrassing. This isn't even watchable. This is a national joke. I hope you're happy, Tom Ricketts. I really hope that your sports book is sparkling and that Gallagher Way has all the pumpkins you can sell. And you have all your corporate sponsors and all your fancy little clubs where all your corporate buddies can laugh it up on your marquee network while we watch a team that can't even function. The fourth most valuable franchise in the sport has quadruple A players playing premium positions after they said that this was not a rebuild and that they were going to make the next Cub team great and that we weren't going to wait long. They bullshitted us. And this is what we get.
Saturday was just peak. Fuck this shit.
That was men bullying boys. The Dodgers went in there. They could have slept and still won that game. They could have won that game 18-1 if they really wanted to. I guarantee you. I guarantee you they were playing at 0.5% because they know they could beat these guys. They look helpless out there. And it's nothing personal against them. The management is asking too much of career minor league guys, younger guys, and just older veterans because they didn't want to pay up. You made some good moves. You got Suzuki, good move. You got Stroman, very good move. You made some veteran depth pieces like, Jonathan VR, fine, whatever. David Robertson, very good move. I'll give you that. But your payroll is still less now than it was at the beginning of last year. And you have the nerve to tell us that this is not a rebuild? Yeah, you're going to email your fans saying that they're going to build the next Cub team, and you give us a team that is projected to win 54 games.
They had a 3 games. I get the Dodgers are good, but you can't lose a 3-game series to them 20-2 or 20-3. You can't do that.
That was a D1 team playing a D3 team. That's what that was on Saturday in front of a national audience. Only the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Yankees are considered a bigger market than you. Heck, you might even be above the Red Sox. You're in the top 4. One is playing a AAA team. And you charge more than any other franchise on this planet to go to your games. And you charge people to pay for your fucking channel. And this is what they're giving you.
I'm going to even make it worse. The Reds gained 2 games on you this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. We have no hitting. We have no pitching. And
we can't field. We can't run the bases. People will crap on David Ross, and he doesn't do everything perfectly. But what the hell? No manager is going to make this a contender.
I mean, the only reason we aren't in last place is because the Reds have a 179 winning percentage.
Yep. And you know what? I'm starting to feel like the Reds could pass us. The next week, they got a 4-game series in Cincinnati. Would you be shocked if we lost 3 or 4 to that? I wouldn't.
There's only 2 teams that have a worse record than the Cubs.
The Reds and the Orioles?
The Tigers.
The Tigers.
The Orioles have a better winning percentage than us. The Orioles actually not terrible. They're not good, but they're not terrible.
No, they've been playing a little better than I expected them to. I mean, honestly, Sean, here's the problem. It's that they're bullshitting us. Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts are bullshitting us. When Theo Epstein came to the podium and laid out his plan, we bought into it. And the plan was laid out. We knew what was happening. And the last people in this organization I'm mad at are the players. Because you know what? If you're either young and inexperienced or just flat out not very good, at least you're trying. You're going out and playing. The fact that the Chicago Cubs organization went out and expected Frank Schwindel to be some power hitting run producer, that's unfair to him, frankly. You're the Chicago Cubs. Nobody knew who Frank Schwindel was last year. Nobody knew who Patrick Wisdom was last year. Not because they're unknown prospects. It's because they're 30 years old and they've played in the minor leagues this whole time. This is what the Orioles should be putting on the field. This is what you see the Marlins do. You're the Chicago Cubs. And you say that this isn't a rebuild? And you have the nerve to make everything more expensive than it should be? What is this? Man.
It's so frustrating. I mean, the team, like, you're right. I don't want to shit on the players. You as the management and ownership assembled this team. And what do you expect from them? I mean, like, am I mad at Rafael Ortega? No, but he's not good. I mean, with his 302 slugging.
I mean, Michael Hermosillo, he tries hard. He gave it his all, but, not a major league player. Very few people are. I sure hell's not, but I'm not getting paid to be one.
And Nico Horner at the plate has been very good, but
I like Nico. He's a young kid,
but his head's not in the game clearly all the time.
Yeah, and I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. I think Magical just needs to be sent down for a few weeks.
I think so. I mean, he's, I shit on Rafael Ortega's 302 slugging, but Madrigal's slugging 253.
Mm-hmm. And I know he's not a slugger, but he's not hitting. And that's the thing.
His OPS is 516.
Yeesh.
His OPS is like 60 points below Jason Hayward's.
Yikes.
And Jason Hayward's, why isn't he DFA'd?
Well, honestly, he's better than like more than half the team right now.
He's not good though. Like, it's just, this is a bad team. Plain and simple. Our pitching
and this was
stinks.
This was never going to be a good team. But this is 2012 100 loss tank bad. It should never be this bad going forward. It should, when you have risen your value so much the way you have, it should never be this bad. Never.
No. And Justin Steele, he started off good, was excited, and he's just in and over his head.
I will say, I thought he pitched pretty well yesterday. Spot start. The command was much better. I agree the command's an issue. I think he's a bullpen guy going forward. I was perfectly fine giving him the chance. And, this too. You've had starters out. Azolay's been out. Miley's out. That's been tough. I get it. It's been tough. It's just you don't right now have the depth ready to replace it with. The light at the end of the tunnel, though, is some of your top pitching prospects like Caleb Killian and DJ Hers. They're killing it in the minors. And there are other guys that are killing it in the minors.
What I don't understand.
That's the only thing we have to hold on to.
But what I don't understand is just like, there's a lot of like, what the hell that go on. Like, yesterday. If Keegan Thompson goes in the second inning, why the hell didn't you start him?
I hate that whole opener thing. I hate that opener thing. I think it should only be used in like emergency basis. But I don't know. I don't know.
And the thing is all right, the starters haven't been good, but they could be way worse. They're
not going deep. That's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah, they're going 4 innings, and this is a dog shit bullpen.
I mean, I will say Robertson's been awesome. Trade bait.
I just, it's just so infuriating. And I like, where do you go from here? This is a long, it's a long season, and they're early in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's over. And again, they were never going to be contenders this year, even if you made your team better, but they should be semi-competitive. They're not semi-competitive. And these guys look dejected. I mean, they look completely dejected. And you know what? If you're going to be tank bad, just come out and be honest with your fans and stop bullshitting us.
I don't understand, though, is if you were going to be tank bad, why did you go out and sign Stroman?
Because Cubs Twitter bullied them into. I guarantee you, if Cubs Twitter wasn't that adamant, they wouldn't have signed him. I guarantee it.
Then we need to be more bullies.
Yeah, clearly. I mean,
and Patrick Mooney is telling us, oh, well, Wade Miley's close. What the hell's that going to do?
My hope is Wade Miley pitches like he did last year with the Reds, and we could flip him for something decent.
Yeah, but like it's not helping you any this year.
No, but I mean, honestly, at this point, you just let the veterans play well so you could trade them. I mean, that's really what it's going to be. Here's one thing I can say that might make us feel a little better. There could be that time in the year, when veterans go, last year, the veterans that got called up, they were career journeymen. We didn't know who they were. This year, you might actually see some prospects come up, not the top prospects, but people like Nelson Velasquez or Jared Young or the other Nelson, the Nelsons, as we call them. And then maybe you see Caleb Killian. So maybe what you see more towards the end of the year are maybe not your top prospects, but prospects. I would much rather watch that because Yan Gomes, I think Yan Gomes is going to stay because if you trade Willie, you're going to need somebody to catch. But, David Robertson, I've loved watching David Robertson. Jonathan VR, he's a fine veteran. But when you're way out of it, there's no point. There's no point in giving playing time to those types of guys. Like, let them go to a contender, to be depth somewhere. Like Andrelton Simmons, what the hell was the point of that?
I don't know.
If the Cubs are contending and you say, hey, here's a Gold Glove shortstop that's reliable depth for you. Okay. That's not the case. I mean, Sean, Yan Gomes is batting fourth tonight.
I would rather watch Myrtle Beach play right now than the Cubs because then I can watch Pete Crow Armstrong.
He is a stud.
Who is the minor league player of the month for April? In April, he batted .375 with 3 home runs, 13 RBIs, and 7 stolen bases, and a 1.083 OPS. Yep.
And now the game's about to get started, and the OPS for our cleanup hitter is like 508.
And we've seen Seiya Suzuki really struggling. What has he struck out like 18 of his last 57 plate appearances?
I respect the fact that he's patient, but I think he needs to start attacking quicker. He's falling behind in the count he takes the first pitch he's falling behind because they know now, just throw him a strike. He's not going to swing at it.
And I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. I was in the car listening to the game and they said that there was ball 4 that he took, but Ron was up in arms about it because he's like, that's way too close to just take that on a ball 4. He's like, you gotta, hit that one. You can't take that. And, I ended up watching the play and he's right. Sure, he got his base, but when it's right on the plate, who knows what that ump's going to call. You've got to at least protect the at bat or, swing on those. And you can't just be so passive.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing. I don't think pitchers are really attacking him too much differently than they were, but I'm really shocked at the way the way Suzuki started the season and what he's doing now, it seems like he's two different guys. The way his plate approach is.
There was going to be a rough patch. There was.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's it's a rough patch.
It's ugly.
But he just looks like a different guy up there.
I will say, I think one thing, I'm not saying it's a concern in the long run, and maybe, I mean, I'm not really measuring it by any chance, but sometimes I feel like the past few weeks, like the bat speed remember when he first came up and the bat speed looked like you couldn't even see the bat swing? It was so quick.
Yeah.
Like the bat speed just looks a little slower.
But, when you're surrounding him with Yan Gomes and Rafael Ortega.
Well, he's got no protection.
There's no protection in there. When that outfield is say a Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong and Brennan Davis, protection. The new Bash brothers.
I just want to highlight a few positive things. I'm going to tell you though, that rant I went on, that was therapeutic. I was literally sweating with veins pulping out, but like I needed to get that out.
Alex, the Incredible Hulk. Alex smash.
You're listening. You don't hear anything. Wait, where'd he go? All of a sudden you hear glass break in your next room and it's me. But here's a few things I'm going to give some credit to. Really like Ian Happ. He's continued to play really, really well. That's good to see. Also, Wilson Contreras has been hitting a lot better recently. A lot better. He just led off the game with a single. He's been hitting better. Like you said, Nico Horner, the base paths has been bleh, but hitting-wise, he's been pretty good. I'll give him that. Patrick Wisdom's not a long-term solution. He's not on base, strikes out a lot, doesn't hit for average, but at least he can still pop one out. That's all you can really ask for him, and he's doing it.
And honestly, during a rebuild, like those are the kind of guys that work in a rebuild.
Right.
You know what? We're gonna live with 30% strikeout rate because he's gonna hit a lot of home runs.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll live with that.
Brian LaHaire was the same thing.
He's also on PEDs.
Brian LaHaire?
I believe he was. Didn't he get caught?
I don't know. Hey, Suzuki just doubled. That's in the corner, and Contreras is going to score. All right. So, boy, I hope that's a slump buster. Oh, that's nice to see. That was a beaut. He just pulled that into the corner, rolled all the way to the wall. But I will also, there's one more thing I'll say. I like the fact that the schedule does ease up a little bit after San Diego. We went through a pretty brutal stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking so good now. I mean, we're playing the Padres, and they're a hell of a team this year. But it can't get any worse. And the hope is that we can at least beat up on the Reds. Fingers crossed. Got to find somebody smaller than us to beat up. It clearly wasn't the Pirates.
Yeah. I'm not excusing this bad play. I mean, you don't expect them to go above 500 in this stretch, but they have 2 wins in the past 2 weeks.
It's been tough. And, one thing I'm going to say is I figured as the years have kind of gone on that the Crosstown Classic would be less of a pissing match between the Northsiders and the Southsiders. And it really is still a pissing match.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, when has that game or that series mattered?
Outside of 2020 and 2008, every time one team was good, the other team wasn't.
Yeah, it's the vast majority of those games are just They're not important. So what's the point of having, but I don't understand. Like, just I'm a Cubs fan. Like, Cubs are my team. So you're not seeing me out buying like all this White Sox gear. But guess what? I can sit down and watch a White Sox game if the Cubs are off, or it's a Cubs played a day game and I was at work. I could sit down and watch a White Sox game and be happy that they win. Sure, in the crosstown class,
bandwagon White Sox fan confirmed.
I've got one of those hats that's a split Cubs logo and White Sox logo.
Oh, you are the worst type of person.
You ever see it? Like, when those things come out, it's always a mom of a kid that's got, two kids when they play on opposite teams. And it's like, I sewed this jersey together out of two different jerseys. She's waving two different foam fingers.
That's literally you. Just you walk around town all day. Like, all right, sir, your coffee will be $8.89, and you got the two foam fingers, and you're just like sticking the finger into your pocket like nothing's happening.
I'm like, do you take Apple Pay? And they're like, yeah. And then I just put a Macintosh Apple on the counter. I'm like, there you go. Wonk,
Pleasure,
wonk, wonk.
pleasure doing business with yous.
Back to Gallagher Way I go. Taking the show to Gallagher Way.
Pumpkins at Gallagher Way. But
the comedy stylings of Sean Hopman at Gallagher Way.
Hey, I'd actually pay to see that. It would literally just be me in the audience, just sitting down with like a thing of popcorn and a beer.
At Gallagher Way. But like, I don't understand. I just don't get the hate. It's your city. They're the opposite. They're the other conference. Like, it doesn't matter.
It's annoying. It really is.
Like, I get the hate for the Cardinals or the Brewers. I get the hate for
Minnesota or Kansas City.
Like, because those are your division rivals, and
right.
You're like, the Cubs and the White Sox aren't in the same division. It's like a friendly game, and they're going to decrease the number of times the Cubs play the White Sox. I think starting next year, or is it this year? They're going to start playing less as they start playing more interleague games. You're going to play the way the schedule is going to go. You're going to start playing every single team, which I think is cool. I like that, but it's de-emphasizing the Cubs versus the Sox. So you're going to get like 3 games against them. Why is that a rival?
And it's in May.
Yeah. Why is that a rival? Who cares?
Yeah. I've never been big on it either.
These are all people that live in your neighborhood. Like, they live, you pass by them on the bus on the way to work, or you drive next to them on the expressway. You're grocery shopping. Like, these are all, like, why the hate? Why the need to rub it in? Oh man, the White Sox really kicked the shit out of the Cubs this weekend. Why? The Cubs are terrible, and you're a good team. Like, you're supposed to win.
Yeah, we're not putting up much of a fight, even though the games are close.
Yeah, like what? What are you gonna do next? Is tell me how you stole a Hershey's bar from a 3-year-old? Like,
is that what you just did?
I wish if I had a 3-year-old, I would totally would.
You're saying that as there's a 3-year-old literally hopping on its feet right now as you're dangling a Hershey's bar over.
Let go, you little shit. But yeah, I mean, brighter days are not here for the Cubs, right? For this season, we're gonna be bad. And the tough part about the MLB and NHL is when you're bad, and the reward is supposed to be that you get a better draft pick. But the draft picks for those sports don't help you right away.
No, and especially now that there's a lottery, it's not as guaranteed.
Yeah, so, but like the, what what's a fast timetable for somebody coming from a draft pick? 2 years. So you're like, they're not helping you. Whereas the NFL, all right, you're bad. The person you draft with your first pick could be the difference between you being the worst team and you being in the playoffs. Like, it's that quick of a infusion of talent on your team. And that's the hard part about baseball is the tank and rebuild model is proven that it does work, but it's a slow, painful process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It
And
is.
and the MO of Chicago sports has been never truly embracing the tank and trying to stay relevant while also tanking.
Right.
And
It's the try to rebuild and contend at the same time, and it never works.
it doesn't. It makes the process longer and more painful. We saw it with the Blackhawks. We saw it with the Bears. We saw it with the Bulls. We saw it with the Cubs. Um, the White Sox are the only ones that just were like, we're going all in. We're trading anything that's not nailed down.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. If you're not a White Sox fan, it's pretty miserable. Cubs, Bears, Blackhawks.
It is. And, I guess we'll talk just a minute about the Bulls. This is a big off season for them because they could very well spin this off season to, to make themselves a competitor in the conference for next year, or this could go real bad and they wind up being a bad team again. And a lot of that hinges on what they do with Zach LaVine.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I still kind of haven't processed everything yet. We got to move forward with it, but we'll see.
I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, who in the NBA is really worth the max deal? But then on the other hand, like, it doesn't matter who I think is worth the max deal, because the culture and the reality in the NBA is that anybody that's an all-star level on your roster when it's time for their contract to be up is probably getting the max deal. It's just the way it works. So if the Bulls aren't giving him the max deal, like, he's probably walking.
Yeah, and there's people already photoshopping him in a Spurs jersey.
I actually saw that. I would probably guess he would go to Portland if he were to leave. But the benefit of the signing with your team is Bulls can just give him so much more money. And Zach's not dumb. He knows the Bulls what they can offer him. And I wonder what AK and Mark Eversley are going to do. Are they going to offer him the full max, or are they going to offer him something that's not the full max but is more than anybody else can offer? Where do you go from there? I mean, if you can't come to an agreement, do you do a sign-in trade and then try to quickly rebuild on the fly that way?
Maybe gives you a better chance to get a star player. I don't know. It's it's something to think about. It is. It's not off the table possibilities.
I don't even know what a Zach LaVine sign-in trade looks like.
I know. Because I mean, you would think that if they were offering to trade, a team would make a deal. I just, you know, you would think a team would love to get him only signing money, not having to trade assets for him.
I don't know. You know what? Are there even that many sign and trades anymore in the NBA?
You don't see a lot.
I mean, when I was young-ish and younger, like you saw those all the time. And you really don't see them that often anymore.
No, you don't.
I wonder if that was like a league emphasis is to try to, frown on those because it sort of bypassed. I mean, the NBA salary cap is kind of convoluted, really convoluted. And I understand, building mechanisms in place for you to keep the guys that you drafted, keep your guys, and going beyond the cap to do that. I get that. That makes sense for continuity in the league. But then when you sign and trade a player, it really is bypassing the rules that you put into place for the salary cap and for the purpose of that. So I could see the league just really deciding, listen, no, we're not doing that anymore. Yeah, I think Zach is back, but I don't know. It's odd that, we haven't heard more about the Zach LaVine contract.
Yeah, I think we'll hear about it more after the playoffs.
Yeah, you hope.
Remember, AK doesn't show his cards.
It's true. It's just like Kenny Rogers. Got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece. And boy, getting that rant off my chest felt really good, even if I had to be kind of vicious. It just, it felt good. Ooh.
Do you need to borrow the stilts?
Blah, blah, blah. Just take the skates off them first.
Yeah. So hopefully next week when we talk, we'll be talking about the Bears schedule because isn't that supposed to come out any day now?
Yeah, should be soon. So I think by our next show, I'd love to be talking about the Bears schedule because that is always fun to do the way too early predictions.
And it's funny, you always go through and you look at it at first and you're like, oh yeah, well, this is a win. And then you get in the season, you're like, oh, son of a bitch, they're not going to win any more games the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
And not to circle back, but my hope with this team, I don't have high expectations. My hope is that even when they lose, it's a competitive loss. I can deal with losing. It's just the way Matt Nagy lost got so frustrating.
Oh, big time. Big time.
Like, you know what? If you're rebuilding and you're like, listen, we know our secondary is not good and we're going to get burned a lot. And if we win games, it's going to be a higher scoring. It's going to be 27-24, something like that. And you start recognizing these things, but I need to see competitive losses where you feel like it's not just so frustrating that you want to smash yourself in the face with something, that it's actually a back and forth. And you're like, you know what? They're going back and forth. It's just not our day. And it's a little more forth than back. And, games where you're like, oh, it's not, the Bears didn't move the ball past the 30-yard line at all in the game and lost 17-0. And the quarterback had 130 yards passing. Like, I just can't deal with those. And they only ran the ball 6 times. I just can't deal with those losses.
Yep, I'm with you there.
If you ran the ball 30 times and the passing numbers were okay, and you didn't get scorched on the ground, or no, you didn't give up a 200-yard wide receiver or a 500-yard quarterback, and it was just a normal competitive loss. Okay, that still sucks, but I don't feel like I want to throw a shoe through the TV afterwards. Like, I'm like, all right, it sucked. It's time to move on.
Yep, I agree.
But that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. And please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. It's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2, and AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does, because Alex is a very talented guy. He's not just a sports meatball.
My friends.
And with that, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.